Hey everybody, I'm here at Valley Watermill Park. There's no one here because it's so early, but I came out to try to find a very specific plant, and I'm gonna continue to look for it through the woods here. It grows along the edges of streams in like very moist woodlands, so there's this nice north facing slope that I'm gonna check. Great thing about this time of year is that there aren't any leaves on the trees, but spring is still evident. You can see it everywhere. So I'm walking through the woods here, and there are all sorts of spring flowers that come up in the woodlands. They're usually very small and easy to overlook, but if you know what you're looking for, you can really find some pretty awesome things. Okay, I found the plant I was looking for. I found a nice little colony of them. I'm perched on the edge of a ravine here. So if I slip and fall, I'll keep that video in here for sure. Uh, but I want to show you some of these plants. I'm gonna try not to step on any because there's so many of them. But this is the plant I'm looking for right here, and it's called Dutchman's Breeches. So these are just the leaves, and so they come out very early in the season, usually the last week in March, which is dangerous because it can still be cold at that point. But the plant comes out early because, as you see above me, there are no leaves out. And so it has this evolutionary advantage to getting as much light as possible so that it can photosynthesize before everything else. So if it gets enough glucose built up and energy, it can flower. Let me see if I can find one that is flowering. Here we go. Okay, so here's one that's flowering. And you can see why it's called Dutchman's Breeches. It kind of looks like settlers thought they looked like a pair of pants hanging upside down on a clothesline. And the reproductive parts are down here on the bottom, right here. And this plant, not only does it have an evolutionary advantage of coming out early so that it can get the sun, it also has an advantage by having a really close relationship with two types of insects, and the first being bumblebees. So bumblebees come out very early in the spring, so about this time, same time this plant is flowering. And this plant has evolved a shape so that only bumblebees can pollinate it. And so if you pull back, see how all the parts come out? The bumblebee can get at that nectar and also the pollen. And so the bumblebee will come, obtain nectar from this plant, and then accidentally get pollen, and it will go and fertilize another plant. And so the Dutchman's breeches can cross-pollinate that way. But another very cool thing about this plant is that once the seeds form, the seed is just like any other seed. If you just imagine a seed, that's basically what it looks like, but except it has a little sticky fruit part at one end, not all the way around like an apple, but just at one end. And that is attractive for ants. And so ants will come up the stalk and get the fruit, and they will take it back to their nest. And in an ant hill or an ant nest, they have rooms where they throw things away, so like a garbage room, like a big trash can. And so the fruit is quickly eaten by the other ants, and the seed is thrown in the trash room. And so the thing about the trash room is it's full of rotting plant material and other decomposing compost, and it's underground and it's safe. And the seed, that makes a really great place for the seed to sprout. So somewhere underneath here at one point was an anthill, and so typically these plants will grow in colonies because of the manner that ants tend to spread them. And so there are more down the bank here. There's another one blooming right there. But the Dutchman's Breeches. It's one of my favorite spring flowers. So if we think about these flowers in terms of evolution by natural selection, those plants that sprout too early for the bumblebees to be out, or come up too late to get enough sunlight in order to bloom, those plants are going to be less fit. And so those individuals that bloom at the perfect time, that put out their leaf at the perfect time, those are going to have higher fitness than individuals that go earlier or later. And so in that, only the genes of the plants coming out at the perfect time are going to be passed on to future generations. And so that's how the species, there's a strong selection pressure for the species to bloom at a very specific time to correlate with when bumblebees come out first. Also, plants that put that extra little fruit on their seed have a higher fitness because they're more likely for ants to collect the seed and take it back to the nest where the seed has a safe place to germinate. So there's going to be lower fitness for plants that have a small fruit, or maybe even a larger fruit if the ant can't carry it, or maybe it's more energy than the plant can handle. So that perfect sized fruit on the seed is also going to have the highest fitness. And so that way, genes with that perfect sized fruit and genes that allow the bloom to happen at the right time, those sets of genes are going to be passed on to future generations. So even a plant this small, we can see that it's a perfect example of evolution by natural selection. Great blue heron. Red-bellied woodpecker. And Carolina chickadee. Yellow-rumped warbler. It's a female.